I do want to talk about Kliff Kingsbury real quick, though. And first and foremost, Sam actually asked the question, why? Why Kliff Kingsbury and why Joe Witt Jr., the defensive coordinator? And Anthony, I do think that DQ talked about Kliff Kingsbury first, so we can stop this bite. For now, all due respect to Joe Witt Jr., I just want to talk about Kliff. And as we've established, DQ, he can go on for a little bit. But here's why Dan Quinn hired Kliff Kingsbury.
Well, I think I'll take you back a bit. And so when you're getting prepared for this, you're not sure what job you're going to get. You're thinking, okay, this, opportunity. So it's a little different than being on their side where they were going to select, where on the coaching side, you were going to see where would be a good fit. And the coaching staff would be the fit irregardless of where you went. Okay, so for me, selecting a place that I would be able to potentially coach didn't have to do with did they have a quarterback or cap space or any of that. It was ownership and general manager and fan base and what you could create together, because cap space changes. I was looking to say, how could we do something long term to kick ass for a long time and continue to play well, not just because they had won this or won that. So Kliff has always been somebody that I've kept up with. Years ago, we both coached in college. And we first met each other at an award show and just kind of hit it off on that time, and then competed against each other. I certainly followed his career, through his time at Tech and then into Arizona competing. And so in the same way of why I wanted to hire Kyle years ago, he was hard to go against. He would stretch the field horizontally and vertically, and going against Kliff, those same feelings you had. This is going to be tough. Matchups, formation, speed, shots down the field, aggressiveness, boldness to go. And so as a coach, you were writing down some names if this is something in your future that said, if I get that shot, this is somebody I would want to talk to. And so that's where the start came from him.
So, Anthony, when it comes to this Kliff Kingsbury hire, should I start with the positives or the negatives? Because I think there's a laundry list of both.
I think you should start with the pros, to be honest.
That's where I was leaning to. But, I got to run it by you. You're my guy. DQ said that Adam Peters is his guy to, run things by professionally. That's your job. Sometimes I ask you to help produce the show on the fly as opposed to just all the great work you do behind the scenes. All right, so here's the pros for Kliff Kingsbury. Very innovative offensive mind. Showed that going back a decade. His Houston offense, when he was the OC under Kevin Sumlin with Case Keenum at quarterback, averaged 50 points a game, and that's not an exaggeration. The dude can coach offensive football. He spent time in the NFL. He spent time around some of the best and brightest minds. He was drafted by the Patriots. He was actually as a Super Bowl champion. Didn't play a snap, but he was on one of the Super Bowl teams with Brady and Belichick back in the day. So he's been around super high level quarterbacking, super high level coaching, and his track record of quarterbacks he's worked with is pretty freaking ridiculous. Some would argue maybe he's lucky to have been around some of those guys. I think a lot of those guys would tell you that he was pretty instrumental in their success, including Patrick Mahomes. Now, they didn't win a lot at Texas Tech, considering that he had Mahomes, but Patrick actually talked recently about how Kingsbury really didn't limit him. And in the same way that Steve Kerr has been essential to Steph Curry and kind of let Steph be Steph, I think Kliff is a guy who let Pat be Pat in college, and Pat figured a bunch of stuff out. And by the time he got to the pros and then gotten a little bit of structure under Andy Reid, he turns into Patrick freaking Mahomes. Schematically, the things he did at the college level are different than what he did at the pro level. I think Mark Bullock, who does such a good job breaking down the tape, did a great job on his Substack. So free shout out for Mark, because I'm not going to steal his work. I'm going to credit him. But he did a great job of breaking down both passing and running wise what Kliff did in Arizona, where he took some air raid concepts and some of that stretching the field, but also mixed it with a lot of running the football. James Conner had a ton of rushing yards when he was the running back for Kliff in Arizona. Kyler rushed for 800 yards one year as the starter in his full season, or his best season under Kliff. And I think when you look at the quarterbacks coming out, any of the top three, I don't think Drake May is an 800-yard rushing threat, but and I don't think Caleb actually is either, but Jaden Daniels certainly is. And so you see the ways in which Kliff understands quarterback run on top of throw on top of running back run, and some of the innovative stuff he did with a lot of gap scheme running, which by the way is what Brian Robinson was used to from Alabama. that was all good. I think Kliff also did a good job of using pistol to offset some of the deficiencies of shotgun runs in terms of you 90% of the time go side opposite of the back. So if the back is lined up in shotgun, offset to the left, 90% of the time you run right. Well, that's not a thing under center, and it's not a thing in pistol. And Kliff, who wants to be in shotgun all the time, put a pin in that, seemed to be wanting to be in shotgun all the time, would use in the NFL the pistol to kind of have a different version of doing that. I also wonder if he would operate far more under center if his quarterback wasn't Kyler Murray, which is something we're going to find out, because Kyler is 5'9". And so Kyler's inability to see literally at the line of scrimmage, and to, if he's taking a drop back and his first 3 steps he can't see over the line because he's too short, no kidding, they put him in shotgun all the time. There's no point in getting him under center other than to be like, hey, this is a running play. So anything, even play action, you want Kyler's eyes down the field. He did a really good job with the RPO game. That is both pre-snap RPO, where you have 2 plays called, you get up, you do a box count, and it's like, oh, we're short here, that's where the ball goes. Or a kind of read option style, am I handing this off, or to the linebacker flowing with the run, and I'm going to throw a slant behind. He did both. But I think the biggest pro for Kliff Kingsbury is actually something that Dan Quinn just said in that answer. And I hadn't thought of this. This is an original thought. This isn't me reading Mark Bullock and telling you should go read Mark Bullock if you want to sound smart like I just did. But also knowing some of my own. That wasn't all Mark. I have to do some of my own work. Anyway, the point is, what did DQ say about Kliff and the challenges that he presents as an OC? Big shots, explosive, down the field. And when you think back to Terry McLaurin's big gripe about EB's offense, it was that they did not take enough shots down the field. It's like, bro, just throw me the freaking ball and let me be a dude. And I think that element of this offense has been missing heinously since a long time ago, frankly. I mean, really since Jay was here. But even then, there were times, Scott would go through phases. Last year, there was none of it. There was no deep ball threat last year. And Kliff, for better or for worse, is going to fling it. And I think that's great depending on who the quarterback is. And by the way, we can talk about some of the, I don't want to call them conspiracy, but like some of the dots that are being connected when it comes to Kliff and Caleb and all that kind of stuff. But I could see a Jaden Daniels, who had 2 elite receivers and threw a ton of vertical routes down the field, being a great fit in a Kliff Kingsbury offense, potentially. Although Caleb is kind of the elite RPO guy in this class, even though Jaden is a good quarterback runner, I think I'd prefer him in like a West Coast structured system. Here's the cons to Kingsbury. And there's like, I would say one enormous one. And I think it's kind of been the Achilles heel. And like for all those pros, if you have one giant Achilles heel, that can be enough to sink your ship. And it kind of was every year. Kliff relied a lot on tempo. Things were pretty simple, a lot of pure progression reads, a lot of similar stuff, and they relied at times on tempo to just be fast and know that, hey, the defense can't play the coverages that they want to because they don't have time to adjust because we're going fast. And as defenses each year, because they would make tweaks and adjustments in the offseason, whatever, but every year as the defenses mid-year figured out what the right coverages were and knew that they were going to get a similar game plan every week, then that was it. They're in the right coverage. They have the answers. Now all of a sudden, all you're doing with your tempo is going 3 and out quickly. Capiche, there goes your season. And so every single year, his teams faded down the stretch. And whether it was they were tired from the tempo or the adjustment thing, which I tend to think it's more the adjustment thing, that is kind of the downfall of the Kliff Kingsbury offense at this juncture. So he's going to have to make that adjustment. He's going to have to do more during the season. He's going to have to figure out how to run an NFL offense that adapts and evolves each week to the opponent, the game plan, and shows different things and always has a counterpunch. If he can do that as the OC, he's never been an NFL OC before. Maybe he has that time now. It can do that better, that he's not the head coach. This could really work. If not, they're going to be good for a little bit. And then Kliff is going to get fired in 2 years or after this year, and they'll hire someone from the Shanahan tree. And that's how it's going to go. So we'll see. There's a lot to like. I know that's not a clean answer. Everyone wants I love it, I hate it take. I don't have one. I think those are the stakes. That's where we're at. And I still have a lot more homework to do. But I will say, in talking to some people, there's a lot of people that like Kliff. There's a lot of people that think he's really smart. And I do think that some of the stuff that went sideways in Arizona did have to do with the quarterback and his personality as much as it did the head coach. And I don't think there was necessarily any head coach that could have fixed some of the stuff that happened with Kyler in Arizona. And I don't know. We'll see if it continues to happen with Kyler in Arizona after he returned in the middle of last season.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.